Hey, this is Notser, and this is a look at the Tier 7 Premium British cruiser, Belfast. She has 35,700 health, a top speed of 32.5 knots, 12 152mm guns, 8 secondary guns, a surface detect of 10.2 kilometers, and 55 AA defense rating. For my modules, reduced crit chance on main armament, improved aiming accuracy, reduce the chance of flood and fire, faster rudder shift, concealment. For my commander, priority target, adrenaline rush, and demolition expert. We are on the map Two Brothers, and I just want to... I read comments a lot, and some of you are very appreciative of the content, and others are very, very curious about exactly why I do certain things, down to the minute detail of rudder shifting or consumable uses. And I'm going to try to be as specific as possible in this game because I think it's a great example of how you can enhance your power level if you have knowledge of the game. So, we headed out towards D point, and I aggressively pushed forward trying to support the friendly destroyer. Once I'm detected, and look how many people are, at least 4 targets are in the area detecting me and firing on me, or at least targeting me. But once I'm detected, I know immediately exactly where that destroyer is. Because obviously the indicator is telling me 10.2. It's a newbie commander. I'm in the process of leveling up a very special commander just for the Belfast, as you should look to do. So I'm not very skilled. And sure enough, it's an enemy Nicholas. So when I saw the Nicholas, the combination of the priority target telling me so many, and just feeling like I was overextended, I turned immediately back. Instead of keeping the island on my starboard flank, if you have to sail next to an island, it is very obvious that you have to do that. That is a moment in time where your ship is held perfectly straight wherever you're going, or almost perfectly straight. You can sort of predict the heading of the ship, right? The enemy can take full advantage of that. So that's why I aggressively moved back. I didn't just wait to sail back in front of the island. I didn't feel like I could survive that. And I tried to move forward using the ship indicator to give me a good gauge of how far I needed to be in order for radar to be effective. You notice I hovered over it just to make sure all these ships, they have different radar distances. I need to just remember it always, play the ship more. But that's what I did in order to detect the target, which was obviously sitting on D. We couldn't progress it, and he had his smoke. So it was a really bad scenario for him, the Nicholas. It wasn't worth dying for. If he would have recognized that the Belfast is kind of broken in its utility, he probably would have bailed out. But he didn't, and we were able to kill him. Now the team's going to capture D point. The enemy has already captured A point, and nobody went over to A point. And at the time I was going, oh no, this isn't good. This isn't good at all. There's not anyone defending our flank. Just look at we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 ships going this way. Obviously 11 with me. And 1 destroyer. A single lone destroyer going for A point. That's not a good scenario. And I'm not in range of anything. I can't affect anything on this flank. It is looking more and more and more like the enemy chose not to go D. Only stragglers. So there is a massive amount of enemy. Right now on the minimap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, there's a lot of ships. There's only 3 ships that went this flank. All the remaining 9 ships of the enemy team went A point. So I break off. I'm going to pull back, and I'm going to try and set up an attack on the enemy as they move to C point. Now, what is the Belfast good at? It's good at doing DPS. Very, very good at doing DPS. It doesn't have torpedoes like the other British cruisers, but it does have high explosive. High explosive is pretty ridiculous against certain targets, certain angles, you name it. If you use the right ammo, you can do really great DPS per salvo. It just depends on what they are. So I'm going to move back south. There are a couple of friendly slow battleships that are also southern flank, and perhaps they will assist me in protecting our flank. Because if we just keep going round and round and round, we're probably going to lose it. These guys are going to be too slow. They can't keep up. They're going to be overrun. We'll lose 3 ships that were an advantage, or at least equal to the enemy at that point, and it would work out really bad. Now, there's an interesting development of the game for me recently. I really feel comfortable using the islands to my advantage, and I'm going to be doing that right here. On Two Brothers, the islands sort of cut out, they jut out very abruptly, and you can use this to your advantage. Even this little shallow island here is tall enough to block the Belfast from line of sight of the enemy. So what I intend to do is line of sight everyone except one enemy ship and fire on that one enemy ship as long as possible. You notice that I'm detected, and there's also a friendly Bayern that's just going to get in the way, of course. So I decide, just use the smoke. Just use the smoke. I'm very aggressive with my smoke usage in the sense that I do not want to have to use it if I can somehow block line of sight through other means. We have the benefit of aircraft from our teammates, and some of them are actually in line of sight. This is free damage for me. The Gneisenau is burning. It's one fire, and he just put it out. There's also an enemy destroyer that's somewhere to the Gneisenau's starboard side. There's only one enemy destroyer, by the way, left in this game. It could also be a British cruiser. It could be that too. But that British cruiser's probably on his port side, firing this AP at my ship, and he's getting lucky. So I'm going to try and minimize the number of targets that can even fire at my smoke. And yes, it is an enemy Leander. Now, as I go in reverse, obviously I'm going to fire at anything that moves, set them on fire, force out damage control. I might be able to use that in the future. That's what you should think about. Can I set the Pensacola on fire? I know I used the Gneisenau. The Gneisenau was forced to use his damage control. Can I do that too? I use radar. I want to get a good idea of how many people are in and around this area, this Pensacola. Don't do that. You're just going to kill yourself. The enemy is clearly aggressive in this position. We need to just play defensive and force the enemy to lose a lot of health for being so aggressive. Give ground, deny line of sight, shoot at broadside targets, that sort of thing. And every single time I find a target, they either drop off with a combination of nobody in line of sight, or aircraft's dead, or smoke, or whatever, and the Gneisenau is conveniently burning down. Now notice this, my smoke is gone, but I'm still not detected. The island is tall enough to block this ship, and I'm going to continue to manipulate that. I don't care that maybe only 2 or 3 targets I can engage them, and maybe it's not a target that's low. I'm still doing free damage. Free damage trumps everything. It really does. And the enemy Pensacola, he's just a little bit too far forward. Of course, broadside target. Fire the AP at the waterline. He seems to realize that he's too far forward, but it's too late for you, Rogue Avenger. We're just going to take you out, not allow you to do anything. And someone gets the idea, you know what? Let's call in an aircraft. And I, of course, take him out. Yeah, you should have used your aircraft. If you're in a position similar to the enemy, use an aircraft. Do something to spot around the island. Use radar, whatever, and an enemy T-22. Even he doesn't have line of sight on my ship. The aircraft indicator is telling me that only the aircraft can see me. If it's a direct line of sight on something like a destroyer, then that would change to just an exclamation point. The aircraft symbol would no longer be there. So even in this position, I am denying the ship sight. My team is somewhat successful on the flank, just to the north. I don't know how well this division of 3 is doing. I'm going to guess not that good. And the reason I'm guessing that is because even though we have equal numbers, the enemy team is still pretty healthy. And this Leander, he's being really aggressive. And I also decide to use radar. On cooldown, maybe it's wrong, but I just wanted to get the Belfast and the Leander out of there. Radar is usually reserved for the destroyer, of course, right? But it's also really good against British cruisers. And what can he do? He's in smoke. Their acceleration's terrible. If I catch a British cruiser out like this, it's basically a free kill. And I do go a little bit too far forward, and I take a little bit of damage. But again, it's really helpful to have this island, this little house or village in the way. I can arc these shells over it, and I use hydroacoustic because the only solution to this is torpedoes. If somehow the enemy is able to get torpedoes into my smoke, you know, I'm screwed. But I'm denying line of sight and backing up. This Belfast, using his radar, is really not that useful. And he used his radar so late that I was able to kill him during the radar usage. If I were the enemies and I was assaulting my point, I would take the T-22 and I would get way far away. That's the first thing I would do. Trying to get information, knowledge. There's clearly something firing at us, guys. I would also consider using radar even though there's no visible smoke, because he's still manipulating the island to his advantage, right? I'm still using this little peninsula of a little... It's just tall enough to block the ship. Any island that's tall enough to block your ship is a line of sight blocker. 100%. And I decide, we're doing so good. Push forward, work on the Cleveland, work on this. The friendlies behind me, they're really passive. I'm not going to talk too much about the way they're playing, but suffice it to say, they should be a little bit more aggressive, and I get punished for that. I need to take out the Cleveland, who is, of course, being blocked by the Leander. I'm trying to angle against the Leander. I should have angled better coming around it, but I didn't really know where the Leander is. So I switched to AP, fire at the broadside. We fire at the Leander broadside. I'm just trying to kill him while maintaining good angling, and we just don't get him. We just don't get him. And somehow I miss out on that kill. I gave up so much damage to this target because I came around the corner aggressively, trying to figure out a solution to win the game quickly. I probably should have just said to the team, I want to move forward, let's go. And that probably would have worked out. The Cleveland is going to take out the Bigioni, which is great. The Leander is still alive, and he is using a smoke. Now, this is another reason why I wanted to share this. The Cleveland does the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. Instead of being aggressive, he decides to be passive, and he's going to move away from the smoke. What's the best thing that could come from this, Cleveland? You take damage. There's a destroyer scouting you. He can clearly see you. This is free damage. Anytime you're presented with a target that is in smoke, you need to push into the smoke. That's the one thing that they don't want. Well, what about torpedoes, Notser? What about torpedoes? He's a very elusive cruiser. He might take one or two on the nose. Big deal. If he's going directly at the target, it's very hard to be extremely accurate. What if he sends all of them at the same point? Well, the Cleveland could slip left or right to avoid it. Now, the Bayern, I think what's been communicated, and I'm just putting words in their mouth. Someone said, go in the smoke. I'm too low to go in the smoke, so the Bayern decides to do it. The Cleveland could easily have done it too. The Leander can't fire HE. Angle is going to just counter the heck out of his AP coming at him. And sure enough, the guy is extremely low. Immediately dies. Immediately. But the Cleveland was just too passive. It took hold. I mean, the whole group is passive, but I think the Cleveland is afraid of taking damage. And maybe he didn't catch the fact that the Leander was so low. The Leander just should not have been given the opportunity to fire free in the smoke. You just have to be aggressive. That's just what you do with smoke. You push into it, you don't let him set up, and you take him out. It's that simple. And the Gneisen's showing way too much of his side. Way too much of his side. The enemy Gneisen's doing a great job for his team. Here's another Gneisen. Well, what's this Gneisen going to do? Well, he's missing one of his 3 guns, which isn't good. He's already at a disadvantage, but he's also making a critical mistake. he is showing a perfect broadside. Just because you don't take as much citadels as the other battleships doesn't mean you want to be presenting a perfect broadside to the guy. There's nothing you can gain from that. At the very least, you want to be angled, so as much as all 3 gun turrets can encounter the target. You might even decide, I'm only going to use my front guns and then angle even better. Never be broadside and addressing the target that you're aware of. If you're forced into a flank where you can't address everything, that's one thing. But this guy only has one direction for the enemy. He should just angle against that one enemy. And the enemy Genizen, he's punishing this so hard. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's got a slight angle. He's not within torpedoes. Remember, torpedoes are basically 6 kilometers for the Germans. And he's just chipping away at this guy who's broadside. And the Genizen's moving real slow too. That's not going to work either. If I was the Genizen and I had this awkward scenario with my guns broken, I would just accept that I'm not going to be doing a lot of damage. I would try and stall the game because my team has an advantage. Remember, you're playing for the objective. You're not playing to get the kill. And the objective is to win. You're going to win on points, obviously. But he's not going to win if he's killed. Thankfully, the friendly team of 3 is able to take out a target and not even leave it up to chance. But we did pretty good for our team, right? Confederate, I believe that's Arsonist. 4 kills, 3 citadels, base capture, 138,000, and we died pretty quickly. Honestly, I could have probably gotten more if I would have addressed the angling better. And I explained that, obviously. Almost 1 million there, though. And a tier 7 premium. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. If you can manipulate line of sight like that, you can do a lot to the enemy. And none of them were even remotely looking to counter it. The destroyer needed to gain line of sight. Send torpedoes. The aircraft or radar could have also helped counter it. Iron 2,251 base XP, way more than anyone else on either side, except for maybe that Genizen that was on the enemy team. And most of my damage was, well, actually, it's pretty split. It's about 60-40 HE/fire and then AP. The Belfast is great. I really enjoy playing the Belfast, and you'll probably see a lot more of it in ranked play, so good luck. They're going to be doing the same crap that I did in this game. And that's what the enemy team would call it. Crap! How dare you manipulate line of sight like that and do so much damage. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.